as they have been, and of course the whole complex of the crisis, ecological and otherwise, which has come about, was made possible through this. But the human body, precisely because of the lack of know-how, somehow remained untouched until really this century. And now the desacralization of nature has come to roost within the being of that very creature who has desacralized nature, namely man. And therefore the whole question of the loss of the sense of balance with nature has come to have now tremendous social and human consequences, not only because of the bad food we eat or the dirty air that we breathe, but also in the whole question of the manipulation of means of biological continuity of the race, which from, of course, a religious point of view was always sacred. Every religion considers sexuality to be sacred, whether it is denied or accepted, whether it is considered to be a necessary element for propagation of the race as in Christianity, or to be itself a sacrament as in Islam. In all religions, it is not like eating an apple. It has had to do with the sacred quality of life itself. As a result of the alienation from God and from nature, the alienation of man from society has become more and more prevalent. For a long time, modern man, although he hated the nature about him in the sense that he wanted to aggressively dominate it, nevertheless, society as a whole remained intact. But it's society that gradually now begins to fall apart. And with it, the family, which is the unit of society, and within the family, man and women, the founders of the family themselves. In fact, the loss of the sense of the sacred goes back most of all to us, to the individual human being. There's no possibility of solving the problems of the world, whether it be that of the family or of the ecological crisis, without coming back to ourselves. What has happened is that, in a sense, many people in the modern world have lost the sense of a center. Traditional man always had a center. His life was based on a center. No matter how that was expressed theologically, in what language, in the language of personal God, or an omnipotent being, or the center of consciousness, in different religions, there was one point in which all religions were united, namely the human being had a center from which he or she has always acted. Now the center has been lost, and with the center has been lost the origin. The two fundamental points of reference of our ancestors throughout the millennia in which they lived on the surface of the earth was in fact the 2 points of the origin and the center. We all had an origin. We knew where we came from, and therefore we had a sense of belonging, and we had a center. We knew what was the point from which in fact our actions emanated, and the point around which our personality in a sense found its anchor. Now, of course, these 2 points are lost. We do not know what our origin is, and we do not know what our center is. It is not accidental that the loss of our center has led to these incredible theories of human origin, which are really science fiction, but which parade around and have paraded for the last century as scientific fact, and in fact change every decade or so, and therefore in a sense destroy the authentic, immutable origin of the human being, which resides in the world of the spirit, and which had always been able to sustain mankind over the centuries and millennia of his existence on earth, precisely because he knew where he was coming from and where he was going. To regain the center, which is the goal really that must be sought, we must first of all be aware of the dimension of the crisis that abounds around us. We speak so much and have spoken so much over these years about solutions to acute problems. Especially since the 1960s, the awareness of the ecological crisis and the fact that something has gone wrong in the relationship between man and nature has become central. Many steps have been taken, but of course we know fully well that nothing serious ultimately has been done, because the world view which has made this possible has not changed. There are those who wish to in fact amend the way that modern man has destroyed his natural environment so as to live a bit longer on the surface of the earth in the forgetfulness of God. But of course God will not permit this. And therefore all of the agnostic and unspiritual ways of seeking a solution to the reestablishment of a correct relationship between man and nature, all ways which seek in fact to live sanely in a rational way as if man were not a spiritual being, of course falter and are not ever successful because they leave out what is the most essential element. It is in fact impossible for man to have a harmonious relationship with nature, not only the world of nature out there, but also within ourselves, without a correct rapport with heaven, without a correct rapport with the spiritual principle of one's own being. There is within man a drive that is so powerful that only the Spirit can, in a sense, harness it. We see it externally in the way that today so many people seek avidly material things. And that is in fact the immediate cause why the family is endangered. People want too much, and it's not economically feasible to have a large family, and even a small family is a pain if one wants this and that and this and that. But what is it that's going to prevent the soul from wanting so much? What is it that's going to stop this inner drive for things? Either it has to be external social legislation, which one day may come because of an economic crunch, economic depression, or it has to be something that comes from within the human being. The first is not going to be very easily possible because of the tremendous technological power that in fact resides in the hand of man. And it's only the second, namely the inward control of this energy of expansion, this desire to acquire, to accumulate, to satiate the needs of the soul, that can in fact perhaps redress the balance. And where is that going to come from? Except from the Spirit, except from the inner dimension, the heart, the center, which alone can control the passions, the tremendous energies and forces within the human soul. Today, the family is only the last victim of a large number of victims of man's unbridled passion. That is, the divorce in human society today of such proportions that we see is really the external result of the divorce that took place between this passionate soul and the spirit a long time ago. And it's that divorce which has resulted in an externalization of the human being, in which creating a situation in which the human being, male and female, seek the needs that the soul has so much outwardly as to make it impossible even to be with each other, even to satisfy a basic biological need of togetherness. And now, of course, to this is added the impossibility of intrusion through modern technology into the very processes of creation of children, of babies, of delays, of changes, of abortion, of biological technology, and so forth and so on, which will be dealt with in later lectures and into which I will not go, all of which are horrendous, extremely terrifying to many people. But very few people bother to ask, how did we get here? Why did this happen? Why is it that we have become alienated from ourselves as biological beings? Why is it that the cows and the dogs and the buffaloes never became like this? Why is it that even the normal biological cycles of the rest of creation went on, and here we, who are supposed to be such special creatures, have fallen into such a state in which with our own hands we are threatening, in fact, the demographic destruction of certain parts of the human race. One part of the human race from the loss of children, and the other part of the human race from its reverse problems caused also by modern technology. All of these terrible problems, to put it mildly, come back in a sense to this question of the loss of center. In fact, it is impossible to re-establish this harmony with nature, which we as human beings always yearn for, and with it to re-establish the integrity of our own bodies, the integrity of our own souls, the integrity of the family and of society, which in fact is comprised of families, without a rediscovery of that center. In the Bible it says, with God all things are possible. And one might add that without Him nothing is possible. In this very difficult moment of human history, I hope that all people of faith, whether they be Christian or Muslim, Jew or Gentile, Hindu or Buddhist, from any part of the world, but especially Muslims and Christians who've had a common history as two cousins, would be able to pull together their resources and their spiritual heritage to be able to confront the problem, which can only be solved by recourse to that common heritage and return to that being who, despite the fact that we have forgotten Him, never forgets us, because He is both compassionate and merciful.